In Fiji itself, there are presently 4 stakes and then a district that's run by the mission president. There's 2 stakes in the main city, Suva, and that's where the high majority of the church is. And then there's a stake over on the east side of the main island and on the west side of the main island. And I mean, they're full functioning stakes. The ones in the Suva would, remind you pretty much of kind of what a border stake might be here. Lots of members and a lot more compact. But over in the west and the east sides of that island, those 2 stakes, a lot more spread out. They cover a lot more area, and there are anything from the larger wards down to tiny little branches and even tiny little units attached to those branches, and little families a couple selected families that are just extremely far away from anything that are allowed to have sacrament meetings in their home. And so it's really fun. Within like my last area, it was a stake, and we ourselves worked in a ward. Well, there were a couple missionaries in that ward, and then me and my companion served specifically 2 units, and then we actually established a 3rd one. And so 3 just small little groups of people clear up in the mountain in the middle of what seemed like nowhere. I mean, about as tropical, jungle, exotic as you can get. And we would go up there and have church with them. And so you get a lot of good variety from the large wards down to the tiniest of units in the middle of nowhere. And then the district covers more of the outside islands, such as Vanuatu. It's the 2nd big island, and there's just a couple other small islands that have missionaries on them. And that's run by the mission president himself. As far as languages and cultures go, Fiji's really, really exciting because about half the population is the native Fijian people, and then the other half is Indians who were brought from India way back when British controlled Fiji, and they were brought as indentured servants to do sugar caning and all kinds of stuff. And to this day, a lot of them are still in the sugar cane industry. And if you get up to the west or the North Island, tons of sugar cane fields everywhere. And so you get a lot of fun, interesting culture mixes where most of the native Fijian people are Christian, majority Methodist, but still very large Catholic, and small Baptist, a few Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day is pretty big. There's the wide variety of Christian religions in the native Fijian people, and then majority of the Indians still follow Hinduism. But there's a fair portion of them that have converted to Christianity as well, and a really good chunk of the church is an Indian population. And so you get a lot of fun varieties of cultures. You get the native Fijian food as well as some fun curries and Indian spiced up foods. But even still, in addition to that, our mission has 3 islands in particular that are way outside the standard Fijian culture. We cover Rambi, which is right next to the Fiji Islands, and it's kind of really weird because randomly that one island is Gilbertese speaking, and most of the people there originate from the Kiribati Islands. And so that's just like kind of random, but there are 2 elders that they get sent there, and when they're sent there, they'll be called to learn Gilbertese and speak that language. And then there's also Rotuma. It's a little bit further off from the main group of the Fiji Islands. That's its own complete culture. I know it's not Polynesian or Melanesian, it's just its own culture. It's a tiny little island, and there's 2 elders there where the senior companion is the branch president there. And they'll be called to learn Rotuman once they're sent there. And then there's also Tuvalu, which is even further out there, and that's its own country completely. And the missionaries, once they're sent there, are called to speak Tuvaluan. And so those are fun. I never served in any of those 3 islands, but I knew a lot of ones that did. And it was really impressive how much of yet another language they could learn in maybe 4 to 6 months, depending on how long they were there. But as for the majority, you're called to speak Fijian, and you'll spend about half your time speaking Fijian and maybe about half your time speaking English with the Indian population or other populations. And I think just while I was in Fiji myself, our mission president officially called the first Hindi-speaking elders, who most of the time were native Indians, and so they already knew the language, but they were actually called to speak that language and teach the Indian people. And there have been a couple elders that were selected to learn it, and so it was really cool to see that start during my mission, and I'm sure it'll grow, and there's probably a couple more areas open now that are Indian speaking or Hindi speaking.